Okay, we're talking about God and the subconscious mind, and it's a huge topic for most people. When you bring up the word God, people get scared, people get frightened, people feel guilty, people feel you can't question God or the idea of God. People feel that it's something that's outside of them or above them, or people have, they feel guilty, they feel that they're going to be punished. They have all these ideas wrapped in the idea of God. And what most people don't realize is that God is, you create God in your image. And I know that seems, for most people hearing this the first time, that seems like a crazy thing. But I want you to watch this video, and I'm going to explain to you, do my best to explain to you how that happens and how your subconscious mind works. So who I am, I'm a hypnotist, a former psychotherapist, but I've studied a lot of metaphysical information through the years, practiced it, researched it, and lived it. And one thing for sure they'll tell you is that your idea of God has to be in alignment with truth. If your idea of God is messed up or limited in some way, that's going to limit you. And most people don't realize that they're walking around with a limited view of God that comes from, I shouldn't say it comes from religion because it was already in our minds. But what it is it is a narrow way of limiting the infinite, the all-powerful. And it's based off some false ideas. It's based off our own limited way of thinking. And it's time to put that to an end. And I'll tell you, once you put that to an end, your power will open up. You will actually start to create more power in your life because the idea of God that's in your subconscious mind will not be limiting you. So most people now have gotten their image of God through religion. Let's be real. When you were a baby, you didn't know about the concept of God. In fact, when you were a baby, God was your parents who provided you with food, comfort, gave you protection, comforted you when you needed. So in the mind of a child, before you knew about orthodox religion and, metaphysical concepts, your parents were God to you. And that's important because in your subconscious mind, your parents to a degree set the template or the blueprint to God, to how you feel about God or power, or if you could just replace the word God with love. So the kind of relationship you had with your parents, or if you didn't have a relationship with your parents, says a lot about your relationship with God. And people don't seem to understand that, and they challenge me a lot on that. And I say, well, if you just look in the collective unconscious of people, you'll see the same themes keep popping up, especially amongst our people. Black people, we have created a really messed up image of God and then projected it out there in the world. For example, if you look at our media, which is really a reflection of us, and then if you look at the experiences we've had recently, we keep creating experiences of having broken homes, of having issues with our fathers not around, or if they are around, they're kind of incomplete in some way. And you see that mirrored in shows like Scandal and shows like, what's the other show called? Empire. They keep showing you the same theme. In fact, I don't know if it was intentional, but it's definitely just repeating the messed up of images of God that we have manufactured and is actually holding us back from accessing true power. So let's analyze that a little bit. So Empire, I don't know if you've watched the show, but I don't watch the show. My wife watches the show. But I've watched it enough to see that, man, this is, because I watch it in a different way. I'm looking at it like a scientist. I'm analyzing the characters and the roles they play and the symbols they play. Because your subconscious responds to symbols. and you respond to symbols. So when you see the wife there and she's locked up and she's been away for a while and out of the family, well, that represents the divine feminine. That represents the great mother, the image of the mother being, or Mother Nature being, trampled on, forgotten, suppressed, that primal force being, overthrown. And then you have this image of the father as someone who is kind of messed up, just runs the empire, which is supposed to be a record company, but they're really talking about the universe in a messed up way. The father's kind of incompetent. And then you have the sons that are arguing with each other, fighting with each other, and hate their father. So it's the same theme. And then you have in Scandal the same thing where you have the main character, Olivia. What she's doing is she's just replaying the same old hatred of daddy, the daddy issues. Hate my father, you know what I'm saying? He's mean, he's this, he's that, but I still need him. Again, you have the mother, black woman, who's locked up and away from the family. You don't really know much about her. She just seems as crazy. As soon as she gets released, she starts, going on a tirade and on a rage, trying to really destroy the system. Well, she represents Mother Nature, or the divine feminine again. So we have these shows. I hope I didn't lose you. I want you to just stick with this video. I'm going somewhere with this. You have these shows that are mirroring the divine aspects of power, what you would call God, the feminine and the masculine. Well, unfortunately, those images have gotten distorted within us. So we have created some false gods in our image. And what I mean by our image is our false images. When we had our experience down here in this planet, and we really started to lose ourselves and lose our consciousness and started to become more and more human and more forgetful. It's so funny because a teacher told us one time that, the word enos, or enocite, as they call it in the Bible, means forgetful. And that's symbolic of the fact that we really forgot ourselves and our connection to the divine, and knowing that we are the divine. We forgot all these things and started to become, as what they say in the Bible, the prodigal son, the person that left home, forgot who he was, and became something else, became what the world created, or became really a reflection of the world that this being found itself in, which was a crazy world, a fearful world, a crazy world. You have this planet that became a dog-eat-dog world, survival of the fittest, what do they say, no pain, no gain, and all this crap. So we found ourselves in this world that was completely different from the truth of who we really are. And in losing, or we thought we lost touch of home, or what some people call coming to America, Zamunda, in losing touch of that, we started to invent and create false images of our power. And one of the first things we did is we started to externalize it. We started to push this God image outside of us. And by doing that, we started to give it all kind of nasty characteristics. And you see it today, just in how people interact with God and the things that they've assigned to the energy that's us anyway. Things like God being judgmental, that anything you do at any moment you could be punished. If you fart wrong, if you fart, you're gonna be punished. If you lie, you're gonna be punished. So basically, just being yourself, you're wrong. They constantly make you feel guilty. They constantly make you feel at any moment you're gonna burn in hell. And no one's saying, well, what kind of a God would create a force or create a being, knowing that they're flawed, put them in a messed up situation where they're gonna be flawed, and then send them into eternal damnation and fire and burn them up. That doesn't sound like any loving God to me. That sounds like foolishness to me. That sounds like humans that lost their way and started to invent things, lies to themselves, and started to believe those lies. The danger is, because it actually became dangerous, is when we believe these lies, we make them true to ourselves. And then these lies get planted in the subconscious and it creates it as our reality. And especially the reality of God or the divine. How you feel about the divine and how you think the divine thinks about you is a reflection of what you experienced with your parents, because it's all in the collective unconscious of our people. I want you to think about this. People say, no, that's not true. It's just my parents. No, I'm trying to tell you. We have something called a collective unconscious. As a people, we share in a deposit of mind. Families have this. You'll see that parents pass on things to their children unconsciously, and the parents are, children are doing the same thing their parents did or their great grandfather did, and they never met them. And that's in the DNA. Look up something called morphogenetic fields. They'll show you that there's this field around all living things, people and families and groups, and people share kind of one consciousness, even though it seems like we're separate. And in a group of beings, group of people here, over time, ideas or beliefs get deposited in that field, in that mind, which is one mind. And it doesn't go anywhere until it's changed. In fact, those ideas can become dangerous and we can manifest them as reality. So getting back to what I was saying, God became one of those ideas, or the divine. When we became human, we felt we were disconnected from that power and experienced fear, experienced shame, experienced guilt, we probably experienced things we've never even felt before for the first time. And definitely this was part of our journey down here. And we then invented some crazy ideas and assigned it to the divine power, like, maybe God doesn't love us. Maybe God has rejected us. Maybe God wants us to suffer. Or maybe if I'm just good enough, pray hard enough, God will accept me and let me back in. These are the ideas that are secretly, carried by people in their subconscious and then in the collective unconscious as a people. Just look around. Look at how hard, especially black people, look at how hard we pray in churches or in any other religion. We go harder than it. It's like we are praying, we are singing. Any person looking on the outside can easily see that what kind of a God would really demand this of his people or her people. That people have to go so hard at being good or getting favor from this deity every Sunday. Like, when does it end? Usually you graduate, you go to school for 5-10 years and then you graduate, but every Sunday for years you're singing the same song and doing the same begging and doing the same praying for favors. Just forget your emotions, just logically, it doesn't seem right. Something doesn't feel right. You've been lied to. And one of the biggest lies is the image of God. Believing that this God force needs or wants your begging, throes of and cries of worship. That's something that we invented. Because the truth is, and this is something that everyone has to discover for themselves. It's not, I want to be able to tell you what the truth is and I know what the truth. No, it's something that you should discover for yourself. Is that the divine is already within you. They've already told you that. And the divine actually is you. And you don't have to be good to get it. You don't have to sing the loudest in order to be one with it. You don't have to pray and grovel and beg to get it. You don't have to stop sinning to get it and all these things that they tell you. You already are that. You just forgot who you were and took on this disguise, this camouflage idea of being human. But all you got to do is destroy that old false image and you'll see the real connection you have to the divine show up, because it was always there. Your light will start to come through once you clean that window up. Once you remove the blocks in the way, which are your own ideas, your false ideas, that light will come through, because that light was always there. But because you have a divine free will, you have a divine power, you can create God in whatever image you want, and the world will respond to that. The energy will respond to that, even if it's incorrect. So you can create an angry, terrible, scary God that's there to oppress you at every moment. And you're free to do that. And you're free to experience hellfire. But you don't have to, because it ain't true. You're also free to actually come back into the reality of who you really are and experience heaven, or what heaven would be like for you. And you can do either or, because the truth is, the joke is, you are what you're looking for. You are what you're searching for. And that energy is responding to you, to whatever you want, whatever desire you want, whatever belief you want, whatever feeling you want. So if you want to feel and experience self-hatred, it'll give you that. If you want to experience guilt and shame, it'll allow you. You will allow you to experience that game. But if you're tired of that game, I know if you're listening, you're tired of that game. The first step is to destroy this false God. You have to destroy the false images of God in your mind. Because I don't care what spiritual system you practice. I don't care how deep you are, how badass you are, what kind of things you do or have done. If your image of this God force, this God power, the all, whatever you want to call it, is limited, is messed up, then your power will always be messed up. You will bring that energy to your spiritual system. So if you are into, I don't know, I don't want to just start naming and single out groups, because they all have their importance. But whatever group you're in, whatever spiritual science you study, if you haven't cleaned up your images of God, you're just bringing those old images to that group, to that spiritual system. And because your subconscious mind is giving you what you want, even if you think you're learning something new from that spiritual system, you're not. You're not. It's just only going to give you the same old program of a God that you have to bow to, you have to beg, you have to appease, you have to watch out, or it's going to punish you. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to dance on one leg, turn around 10 times, stand in the full moon every Thursday at 10 o'clock, and then you'll be loved, and then you receive favor. If you believe that, then, you know, the energy will respond to you like that. But why go through all that? Why put yourself through that? And it's not true. You don't have to. I know I'm saying a lot in this video, and there's a lot to cover with this topic. I'm going to speak about the parents. People try to, debate or doubt what I'm saying. And I say, listen, you could debate me all you want, but tell me about the relationship you have with your mother and your father. And be honest with yourself. You don't have to be honest with me. Be honest with you. Right? How was that? Because I'll tell you, your father and your mother are nothing more than symbols in your subconscious mind of how you relate, of what you feel about God. So if your father wasn't around, or your father was an asshole, or your father did whatever to you, or was mean or whatever, that is the energy, that is how you feel about God. God ain't around, God. You'll say, no, that's not true. I know God is a loving force. That's what you're trying to tell yourself consciously. But deep down inside, that's not how you truly feel. Because I can just tell you, look at your relationship. Look at your relationship with your parents. Look at your current relationships you have. If you are in a relationship, what's going on there? Because that's gonna mirror your relationship to God. All God is divine love. Divine love. That's it. Unconditional divine love, which is you. All power, all creativity. Right? So, unfortunately, we've twisted that around. And we've put new images and new faces in that and interacted with those images and faces as if they're real. And the beauty of the subconscious mind is that, and the unconscious, is that it's, in a way, always trying to show us what we are secretly holding inside of us. We could lie all we want and try to front, but it's a mirror world we're in. So it's always going to give us, it's always going to attract to us or make us see just what's within us that we need to heal and we need to release if we're willing to look. And I'm telling you, one of these things is your idea of God. Use your relationship you have with your parents as a way to understand yourself and understand your feelings towards love, towards divine power. And especially if you grew up in a Christian household or some type of religious household, you have a messed up image of God. It is totally oppressive. It is completely, it's insane, but people believe it. People walk around with that image. So look at that. Look at your relationship with your father. Look at your relationship with your mother. And look at these shows again with new eyes. Go back and look at Scandal. Go back and look at Empire with new eyes. And I'm telling you, your collective unconscious, through these shows or whoever, is trying to show us as a people what we are creating, what we are secretly holding. We are secretly holding on to old negative images of divine love. And once you clean it up, once you heal within yourself, your childhood issues with your mother, if she wasn't around, or you thought she hated you, then you think God hates you. If you think, God abandoned, if your father abandoned you, then you secretly feel that God abandoned you and doesn't care and left you to be, hurt and whatever. These are things you need to look at honestly in your heart and let it go. Do the healing of releasing it. Then you could start to create new, up-to-date, powerful images of God that are based off truth, which is really actually you. You can unite yourself or reunite yourself back to who you really are. I did a video on the concept of God, and I'm not going to touch on a lot of it in this video, but I will say, my mind is telling me I should touch on it a little bit. I will say that we've been so confused, so lied to, so manipulated, that when our divine power is really trying to talk to us, we don't even recognize it. We're so filled with, our emotional wounds are so heavy, our emotional baggage is stacked up that you can't even hear the divine power. You can't even recognize it. In this one book that I always hold up, the Right Use of Will series, and I can't remember which one, but they say that guilt is God on earth. And I want you to think about that. Guilt is God. You're not linking yourself to the divine power of God. You're linking yourself to guilt, to a false image. And it's giving back to you just what you're putting out, which is someone who thinks they're unworthy and has to beg their way back to forgiveness. nonsense. But people believe it. Now, the concept of God is something that it was in the scriptures, because coming from my background as a Christian, I understand the confusion. And I was lucky enough to have several teachers along the way to help me deprogram my mind over time. And then I was lucky enough to study information about the subconscious mind. I could see where people have gone wrong, and I could see the path or what it takes to undo that programming. And one thing I'll tell you is that this was all symbolic. When they talk about God the Father, they're not talking about an old man in the sky or some male in the clouds or a bearded father figure. Now, you can use that image, if you know what you're doing, to build up a link to your inner power. If that, and people who know what they're doing can do that successfully. So you can use an image to connect you back to that power, because your subconscious responds to images. So a lot of the time in the ancient world, the priests or the shamans, they created images for the people to personify the divine love. And there's many different aspects of divine love. So they created many different images and personalized it so we could have something to grasp, something to hold on to, and something to relate to. However, these images began to be believed as real. And then we distorted them over time. But they were just images. They were just images, that's all they were. I want you to imagine that the divine love, what we call God, is an ocean. An infinite ocean of power, creativity, love. It's everything and everywhere and it's just everything. As we called it the all. I want you to imagine that you are a drop of water in that ocean. So when you're in that ocean, you can't, if you take your hand and you put your hand in water, you can't even, really distinguish the drops of water, because the water is really one. It's fluid and it's just moving and it's all one. You can't see individual drops of water in there. So I want you to understand that's the state that we came from. Now, when we came in a physical body and we had this experience of coming to earth, we individualized ourselves, or it looked like we did. So we created this state of being a drop of water. This state of being the drop of water outside the ocean, you're never really outside the ocean, but let's just, for language purposes, let's just say you're outside the ocean. This individual drop of water became the sun of God. That's what you would call the sun. And that was just a symbolic term to mean you are now an individualized expression of that ocean. So you are now the sun, and that ocean is symbolically the parent or the father or the divine mother. But we know that the drop of water contains everything the ocean has, and the ocean contains everything the drop of water has. So that's why in the Bible, Jesus would say, I and my Father are one. When you see me, you see the Father. And no one can get to the Father except through me. See, he's saying, I am the drop of water, and the ocean is my Father. So when you see me, the drop of water, you're also seeing the ocean. You get it? And the ocean is the same as me, the drop of water. However, you can't get back to the ocean as a human. You can't get back to the ocean with a false image of God. You can't get back to the ocean thinking you're unworthy, thinking you're guilty, thinking you're bad, thinking you're all these these insane beliefs. You can't do that. You can only get back through a realization of your true identity, the ocean, the infinite. And so these are all symbolic, metaphysical terms that got taken literally. Like we actually literally believed that there's the Son of God. But what's so funny, when you look in those scriptures, they're always telling you Christ is in you. And they always say actually that that we make up the body of Christ. But Christ is not one person. As a whole, we make up the body of Christ. That's the same thing as the ocean. And Christ is in you. That Christ that's in you is the innocent, untouchable aspect of who you truly are. That the drop of water, that is destined to return to the ocean. That is perfectly fine, perfectly safe, perfectly loved, perfectly powerful, perfect in every way. Just think for a moment. This is to, people in the fence here, people who are not fully getting this or maybe hearing this for the first time. How could a loving force create, how could anything come out, how could a loving force create anything that's unloving? Just think about that insanity. How could something perfect create something imperfect? How could something loving create something unloving? That's impossible. What's happening is people you're attacking God. People have attacked God or the ocean, the true energy, with their false ideas. You've been attacking that power, or really your ego has been attacking that power. And it's insanity. And we've put a lot of things on this divine power that are simply not true. They're just illusions. Because something loving and perfect can never create something that's unloving or imperfect. That would just be an illusion. Like attracts like. So what I'm saying is we're getting at things that need a lot more investigation, because there's a little bit more to the story that you should be wanting to know at this point. You should have these questions like, how did we get here? What happened to us? How do we get out of this mindset? And what keeps us in this mindset? So, you should be asking yourself these questions, and know that it's okay to ask yourself these questions. And I want you to challenge me on this. I want you to go out and look at Scandal, look at Empire, look at our cultural media, look at our music. How many rappers have talked about their relationships with their father, from Tupac to